Good afternoon, football fans, and welcome back to CFRC at the Lang. I'm Jesse Bell, and I'm joined today by third-year wide receiver, number 18 for the Gales, Jack Ashby Jacobs. Jack, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Jesse, for having me. It's a blessing to be here.
I want to start off by talking about your recruiting journey to Queen's University. Can you walk me through what that was like for you?
From Ottawa, I went to prep school down in the States in Hagerstown, Maryland, and I was blessed enough to be in that position where I could go showcase my talents out in the States. At the end of my senior year, I finished off my year with 2 Division I offers, and I felt that the recruiting process in the States was very business oriented and very they loved me when I was on the visit, but when I went down there, it was like I'm just another number, right? And through that, I met Queens, right? And I was actually verbally committed to go to another school down in the States. And through this process, I was actually talking with Coach Snyder and talking with Coach Travis Devzan, and they just kept on telling me, and just come down on a visit, you'll enjoy. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll move on from there. But they just kept on, they wouldn't give up on me, is what I was trying to say. But I came down on a visit. I was lucky enough to come down in the snow, which is it tested me. It made me want to come there, right? But yeah, I went down. It was a snowy day, but just going down with my family, and then not only being greeted myself by all the coaching staff, but them greeting my family and them, actually shaking my parents' hands. And, I felt in that moment, I felt truly invited to a program, which I've never really felt before.
The question is, how do you strike the balance between being that kind of vocal leader, but also maintaining a kind of cool head in game situations?
I've always kind of been that player who loves to, bring that juice factor, and, whether like the crowd's down, like you said, or like sometimes, the players who down, I always want to be that fire that can, add, just add energy, because I'm a true believer of, feeding off energy and feeding off, the environment and stuff like that. I was a shy kid, and I was scared to be vocal because I was scared of what other people would think of me. So, I haven't always been like that, you know what I mean? So it's been through, testimony and all that stuff. And ultimately, I truly found my voice, I felt like, in my first year when I kind of talked to, he's an alum now, but Aiden O'Neill. Aiden O'Neill was, he was a great mentor to me coming in, and he showed me the roots of what it's like to be a Queens football player, and not only as, a football player, but also as a man, how to carry yourself as a man. So I kind of took that with me to the field, and it took a lot of, a lot of stress, a lot of, other things, like, just truly finding my voice, how to lead in my sense, right? Because I want to be a leader, but I have to understand that we have leaders on this team, right? And I can't just talk over them, right? Because like those are the guys we listen to, and I have to respect that. So coming in, I had to understand my role as a first year player, and through that I just kept on rolling, and then just being vocal whenever I can, just being there for the team, outside of football and everything. And ultimately that brings itself onto the field, and the guys trust you more and stuff like that. And, I'm going to my third year, right? So I'm still building that, and I'm not going to say I'm the best at it, but, I'm still building, I'm still learning, and it's a process, right? So just.
Absolutely. And it sounds like early on, the big key was letting your play kind of do the talking for you. Respecting those veteran voices, but showing like, hey, this is who I am. These are the contributions I can make. And what do you remember of that 2023 game against the Mustangs?
Yeah, everyone talks about their, welcome to the OUA moment, or, what was that one game or one moment that really like showed you what, like the OUA is all about, right? So for me, it was that game against the Mustangs. Ever since I committed to Queens, they always harped upon, the rich history between, us and the Mustangs. And I kind of circled that on my calendar as soon as like I committed, right? And, I circled that calendar, threw out everything that was purple, and, I was honed in on that, right? So it's a whole different week, right? Like you obviously play against the other teams, and you go through, your progressions throughout the whole week, practice, meetings, all that stuff. But as soon as that, Mustangs weeks hits, it's a different feeling, right? And so I just remember being there in my locker room and just putting my headphones on, and then just crying before the game, because I was just like, it was one of those moments that's just like, man, like I'm here, right? Like this is it, like this is the game. And Snyder comes in with the head coach's speech, and then all the guys are fired up, and we walk out that tunnel with the smoke machine, and you hear like, your Queen's Gales, and then they start playing AC/DC, and your goosebumps start going. Then you just see 9,000 plus people in the crowd, and it was honestly a blessing in that moment. And then another thing was, I told Coach Cam, one of our H-backs coaches, but running backs coach now, but he asked me, the day before the game, I was sitting on the couch. He's like, "Hey, Jack, how you feeling?" And I'm like, "Coach Cam, the world's going to know my name tomorrow." And that was kind of something I stuck upon.
Can you speak to the importance of building those relationships here in Kingston with the team?
And understand that every time you wear that Q and the football underneath, that you have a certain expectation, you have to meet a certain standard. People will point you out, right? And be like, "Hey, like, oh, you play Queens football?" Like, or they'll always have a connection, you know what I mean? Right. And Kingston's very tightly knit. So that's something that I've noticed being here. And yeah, like, community is great. That's something that my dad always taught me, is always to involve yourself in the community, right? Because you never know what kind of connections you'll meet. And being here for 3 summers, I've made so many connections, so many opportunities, right? And the fans are important, and you want to bring as many people as you can here, because through that you can they see themselves how great of a venue Richardson Stadium is, because it's the #1 venue in Canada. You know what I mean? It's great. It's an experience. So we're just trying to get out there, get as many people here so they can see for themselves the power of Richardson.
And that brings us to the close of another edition of CFRC at the Lang. Thank you, folks, for tuning in, and be sure to come back next week for another hot and fresh episode featuring some of Queens and Canada's finest.